Hey, dit is Peter Joosten van Projectleven.nl en vandaag doen we eigenlijk iets anders. We doen een interview in het Engels met Teemu Arina uit Finland. Hij is daar een biohacker. So we're going to switch to English right now. Hi Teemu, how are you?
I'm good. It's a sunny day in Helsinki as we speak.
Ah, that's nice. It's also a sunny day here in the Netherlands. Thanks for you to take the time for this interview. Can you give me a short introduction of yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Teemu Arina, and I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. I've been working with technology for over 15 years, and in the last 3 years or so, I've become known for biohacking and quantified self as well. So quantified self is self-knowledge through numbers, as they describe it. Quantified self movement started from Silicon Valley in 2007. Wired magazine editor Kevin Kelly and Rob Wolf and other guys get together, and they start looking into what's going on with these mobile phones, and realized that a lot of people are using them nowadays to track different aspects of their life, and it's only a growing trend. So that basically then became a regular series of meetups, and it spread from Silicon Valley all around the world. I think in the Netherlands you have a pretty big community already. I mean, the Quantified Self Europe conference is organized there, and I founded the Quantified Self and Biohacking Finland, which is now about 3,000 people. So it's been growing pretty rapidly. What we did, we introduced the idea and concept of biohacking into Quantified Self, and the difference and between these things is that while Quantified Self is the self-knowledge through numbers, biohacking is the conscious modification of the self. So in a way, biohacking it can be, of course, it's been defined in multiple different ways, but the way how I look at it is optimizing different aspects of your life with the help of technology. And so you may have a hypothesis of a better you. So let's say, for example, if you exercise more, maybe your reaction time, maybe your attention span will be better, maybe you have more energy. So all of those are theories based on what you heard from other people, maybe your earlier experiences, maybe some studies you read, but those are hypotheses until you test them out. So that in the center of biohacking is then the self-experiment, and Quantified Self is a way of gathering then information and data about that experiment to figure out if you are getting those results you are looking for. And it helps you to quantify in a more quantitative way your experiment. And over time, it also helps you to build a map of yourself, and also it helps you to compare your results with other people. And what I've learned is that while you get into something like that, you are actually engaging yourself in a learning process about yourself. So the more data you gather, the more questions you have, and none of the existing hypotheses usually holds for very long. So once you have an idea, okay, I'm gonna start looking into this area, this is what I'm gonna track. Then after a while, you have much better questions there, much better hypotheses also to set the scene about. So I got into this this approach, and I became very well known in Finland about biohacking. So I was featured in a local newspaper or magazine, which is similar to Time magazine. So Time magazine of Finland featured me on the cover of their magazine in 2013. And from there on, I've been on the media regularly, almost every week, in different kind of radio, TV, newspapers, and so on. So it's very interesting to people. I think it's also related to a transformation in healthcare as well. So it used to be that healthcare was organized from the top down. So you have doctors, you have basically you have hospitals, you have different kind of medical professionals who are providing the services to you, and the government and so on is planning how to establish those services. And that's we are patients. We are like consumers of health services, and we saw already a transformation in media from people who are readers or audience as consumers to become more of an active participant in those processes. So making the media themselves. So I think that's also happening in healthcare. So patients are becoming part of making the healthcare itself. So becoming part of the system of making it a reality. And what does it mean? I mean, if I gather data about my different activities, I have an input that I can provide to my doctor as well. I can work together with my doctor to figure out what's going on. But eventually, what I think is the most important thing here is preventive healthcare. So how do you keep yourself healthy so that you don't have to go to a doctor's office at all? So that's pretty much another aspect of it. Looking at quantified self and self-tracking and so on, I mean, I think as humans, we have done that for centuries. As long as we have been running for Olympics, I mean, we've been looking at, I mean, if you run for 100 meters, we look at the time, how long it takes.
That's
so
a measure. Yeah,
it's a measure. I mean, once you have a measure, you have something to improve on.
Peter Drucker.
Peter Drucker has said that what gets measured gets managed. So in a way, we have a way to take something and sort of make it into somehow external to us so that we can improve on it and we can reflect on it. And I think it's all about feedback loops. So once you get data coming out, you have feedback loops that are telling you in a more precise way if you're getting the results you're looking for or not. And also the technology and the measurement itself works as an input to you. So I think with all these kind of like, for example, here's an activity tracker. It doesn't matter what number you have on it and what's your goal, like 10,000 steps or whatever during the day. Once you get one of these and once you start measuring, you become conscious about it. So when you go to the office and you have the option to go to by the elevator or the steps, then you just realize, okay, I'm just going to take the stairs because I get more steps for towards my goal. So you are, in a way, you're effectively affecting the measurement itself. And in science, that is a bad thing. I mean, that's why we do placebo control, and we try to separate these things, and we try to make sure that the object of the study is not aware of if we are talking about the real thing or not. But in quantified self, that actually becomes a strength because it can aid you in behavior change. Now, then the question is it a placebo or not? That's a completely different kind of conversation. But if you are getting benefits, if you're getting improvements, if you're getting results, I think
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It serves its purpose. So what you can use this kind of self-measurement for, I mean, I've used it for sleep, for exercise.
Yeah, excuse me, I read it started with you with sleep, right? Because you're a CEO of 2 tech companies and you had 4 hours of sleep per night. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was running 2 companies. I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. I never get really tired or stressed out. I can work on for hours and I can get along with very little sleep. So I guess once you turn 30 years old, you get old. So I got a ulcer. So I got a stress-related symptom and disease. And I mean, first I just didn't really pay much attention to it until it started to interfere with my day-to-day going. I mean, that includes the pain as well as becoming more tired during the day. And I got to the doctor's office and I got some medication for it. And it took the symptoms away. So, and the whole idea was that for 1 month, and then it has enough time to heal, and that's the medication is aiding in it. But in the end, after 1 month, the symptoms returned, and I went to the doctor's office. I got more medication, and over time, my symptoms actually got worse, even on the medication. So then I was really desperate because doctor's prescription was really just to give me more. So I did what I'm really good at. I'm really good at breaking down systems to understand how a system works. It could be an organization, it could be a software product, it could be any number of things. And
then wash your body.
I started looking into myself. How does this biological machinery work? What are the inputs? What are the processes? What are the outputs? So I took the systemic view, sort of like a cybernetic view of the human body. And I went into the studies. I never, I did like many people might do in this situation when they have a disease. They Google about it. So I got all kinds of articles. Because I've been doing a lot of lecturing in my life and speaking and writing stuff, I know that people who become known for some of their ideas, they sort of fall in love with their own ideas. So I didn't really trust the first book or the first authority on anything. So I want to figure it out myself. So what I did, I went to PubMed, which is a database of medical literature, and I did a number of searches, and I started building up research on my case, and eventually I ended up from the ulcer into inflammation, and especially low-level inflammation. And I figured out that over time I had sort of went over the tipping point. So I had been running the machine on its edge for a little bit too long. So that's why I got the consequence of it, an inflammatory process, an ulcer. So my biological machinery was not very good anymore at fixing things. Normally it should be. So I started looking into how can I return that balance. So I started looking into food and nutrition, for example, and I started looking into sleeping more. I started looking into stress management, meditation, for example. I started looking into a number of different aspects, including.
It's really holistic, right? Not just the sleep and the medication, but.
Yeah. So it really expanded out, and there was a lot of things. And I looked into the studies. What is like everything that's out there? What is the 20% that has any likelihood of having any hope of working? So then the question was really on testing those things on myself. And for each thing that I was planning to do, including the dietary changes, drinking more water as well, sleeping more, meditating, exercising in a specific way, specific supplements, I started looking into. I'm not getting the results really, and for each thing I put a way of measuring it, and I built an executive summary to my doctor. And she was looking at that, and she said that okay, looks very good, it's sound material, but I'm not an expert on all of this, but what I can tell you is that when I tell my patients that if you, let's say, continue smoking, you're going to die, people don't change their behavior that easily. And now what you're trying to do here is to change all of these aspects at once. And that's not very easy. And she said on a personal account that she had tried to do that for a number of times and failed. So she wished me luck in doing that. But I would say the whole idea of having different tools and technologies to measure things, those became sort of, it was like a gamification.
Right.
It turned my life into a game where I was trying to meet specific objectives. And also the act of measuring things gave me constant feedback of where I'm going. And feedback loops are super important. So for example, just to give you a separate note, an example of feedback loops. I've been sitting in front of the computer for all my life. I mean, that has led to a position. So I've been, trying to fix my posture for quite some time, and you can mentally pay attention to it. And once in a while, you remember it, and you can sort of correct your posture, especially if you know how to do it, just from the mechanical point of view. But once you dive deep into something, you're in a meeting, you are in the middle of thinking something, you are writing something, you just forget about it, and you start to get it into really shitty positions. So it's really good to have something like this, what I have right here. So what I have here is Lumo Lift, which is basically a device that vibrates when my I think its collarbone is in the wrong position. So if I slump into a bad position, it will vibrate. So I get feedback during the day of bad posture, and it doesn't stop vibrating until I have corrected my posture. So months and months or years and years of trying to pay attention to it. A device like this fixed my posture in a couple of months. So it really, yeah, I mean, it reminds you constantly. It sort of takes you out of whatever you're doing so that you can correct your posture. And the more regular it happens, it sort of becomes autonomous. It goes into your nervous system.
In your system,
So I've learned the hard way that behavior change is super hard. But if you can bring in technologies and tools, and also some mental tools, those don't need to be like electrical equipment or lab tests or anything like this, can be also other ways of you reminding yourself of where you want to go and how you're going to do it. That is super important. And I mean, we are robots. We go through our day programmed in a way by ourselves.
Automatic pilot.
Autopilot. Every morning you wake up, you eat the same breakfast, you read the same newspapers, you have same routines, you go to the work, the same route. Those are things, I mean, it's not always the same, but every time you diverge from your routines, you have to do it in a way consciously, and sometimes it's hard, and you have to pay more attention to when you are doing something you don't normally do. And that's the hard part. And it's some people call it the I think it's the zone of uncomfortably. So you're pushing the boundaries of what's comfortable to you. So I think these technologies can be super helpful, but we cannot omit that the real like true masters of biohacking have existed here as long as we have. I mean, yoga masters, martial artists, monks, and so on. All of those guys have used different kind of methods to train their nervous systems to a specific direction, to have increasing number of different kind of ways to have feedback loops, to remind them, to give them feedback on what they are doing, to change their behavior, and to master something. And I think this whole quantified self biohacking is just the modern version of it, and it's a modern. I mean, it's a friend of mine said that who's really grateful for mystics, and all kinds of mystics are of great inspiration to her specifically. She said that Einstein is a mystic to her, and I completely agree. I mean, people who have the ability to take science beyond the boundaries of what it's supposed to do, and can imagine things in a completely new way, and can use technology and science to give a completely new perspective, things to themselves and to other people. I mean, those are all those people are mystics who are challenging the status quo and trying to help us to see things differently. And with these technologies, I can do that to myself in my life. So it sort of gives me a way of having third point view to myself. So it's sort of like developing your metacognitive skills. So it's sort of like paying attention to yourself from an external source by using this technology. You are using those tools, change yourself. And one of the ideas that I've been developing on this one is that you basically are what part of the systems you are. So just like a man who drives bicycle is not separate from the bicycle, becomes part of the bicycle, one system moving in unison. In a similar way, the tools and technologies you choose to use, like the quantified self tools, they become part of you. They're not separate from you. They are you, and you are part of the same system. And in a way, if you want to change your life, you can choose by choosing what tools you incorporate in your life that will change you, as well as we incorporate people, social networks, social media, and so on. The media you consume changes you. The sort of technologies you use changes you. And this is an idea that comes from people like Marshall McLuhan, who was a media theorist in the 60s, who said that technologies are extensions of man. So we use technology to augment our capabilities. And he wrote the book Medium is the Message, or came up with the concept of medium is the message. So in a way, it's not about the content, it's not about what's coming from television, but the television itself, or the radio itself, or the internet, or the quantified self tools, whatever. That's the medium, that is the message that changes you. And so we shape our tools, and then the tools shape us. That's another quote from him. And I find that extremely fascinating. So if you just stop for a while and you think of what tools you use and what tools can you introduce into your life, and what kind of changes can those, like this device in my life, and that's super crucial.
Yeah, and the Lumo is a great example. Do you have other examples of apps, gadgets, tools, things you use that significantly improved your life?
Yeah, there's a number of different things. So picking any single one is quite hard. But I've been looking into hacking meditation, for example. So I got interested into meditation. So this device here is the Muse headband. So it basically is an EEG reader, and it basically, what it does with a phone app, it translates what's going in my head into sounds. So those are the sounds of nature, basically. So when it's super windy and you hear a lot of waves coming in, that's when your mind is not rested. It's super active. And when you work towards settling it down, you basically hear when the nature becomes calm and there's less waves and less wind, and suddenly birds appear. These are feedback loops as well. So it's called biofeedback, and in this particular case, it's called neurofeedback. So you are using technology here to translate something that's going inside of you into sound, and the sound then becomes a mirror through which you can see if you're going to the right direction or not. And with a tool like this, you can learn much faster to calm yourself down, bring yourself into a calm place. And I've used the same for stress management in general, not just meditation, but heart rate variability. So heart rate variability is the distance between two heartbeats, and it used to, normally it's varying, but when you get stressed out, what happens is that the heartbeat becomes constant. It's like an old Chinese proverb: if your heart is beating like a clock, is near, basically. So in a calm and restful state, it's more harmonious in a way, and there's a variation going on. And the way how you can influence heart rate variability and bring yourself into a relaxed state is through breathing. So you can actually, by using specific breathing techniques, you can stimulate your vagus nerve, which is a nerve that comes from your brain to your stomach, and it's connected to a number of different bodily functions and inner organs, including the heart. And it basically also influences the heartbeat. So by breathing in a deep and slow and rested way, you're basically stimulating the vagus nerve, and you can bring down your heartbeat. You can bring also your state of being into a state of rest. And I find a super useful skill. I mean, you can learn this without technology. You don't have to use any tool or technique. You just learn some yogic breathing techniques like pranayama, which are super effective in developing those. So the yogis already developed and they understood these processes in the body by investigating inside what's going on, trial and error and so on, centuries taking to develop those skills. So now we have the technology to measure that, and we can see that there is a measurable effect. And I studied pranayama for a while, but once I incorporated the technology to see how it affected my heart rate variability, I was able to really grasp it. I was really able to learn much faster to
because of the feedback you say you have done.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So the feedback loops are the central stage here for speeding up learning processes.
That's quite interesting. And you also wrote a book about it in English, and it's also going to be published in, or it is in Finnish, and it's going to be published in English, right?
Yeah, so we are working on a Biohacker's Handbook, and this is a book that I started writing once I stumbled upon all of these things. And by the way, I healed myself from the ulcer, and one of the consequences of implementing one protocol was after 3 months that I recognized that my brain works much better. I'm much more alert, and there's less fatigue and less irritation during the day. So I started basically, I continued. And that's another thing about behavior change, is that if you implement something that produces those positive neurotransmitters that really give you play on your reward system, you're getting better results. The whole idea of going back into your old you is, it doesn't make any sense. So that's another thing that I noticed. So at that point, I had an appointment going on for a doctor in Finland who, to my mind, was one of the very few guys who actually understands things. So and he has like half a year of queue to his clinic, and I had that already booked well in advance. But I was already fine. I mean, I already recovered from my thing, and I still had the reservation, and I was thinking, should I go or should I not? Then I decided, okay, I'm gonna go. And I went to his clinic, and I went there and, to his room, and I said, look, I'm not sick. There's nothing. But I want to tell you something, how I did it. So I showed him the research I did, and I showed him the tools and technologies I used, and he got very interested in it. And long story short, we decided then to start writing a book together on it.
Yeah.
So his name is Olli Sovijärvi, and he has studied functional medicine and integrative medicine in Johns Hopkins University, for example. And he's super talented in what he does. He only treats people who have super complex autoimmune diseases, who have not got any help from other doctors, often getting the diagnosis that, you have a chronic thing, and or it's genetic or whatever, and there's nothing we can do about it. Live with it. So he's been helping these guys to get well, and he has a very high success rate. And one of the reasons is that he doesn't take less than 1 hour appointments. So he tries to really dig into what's going on with you, and he does a lot of testing and figuring out the root causes of why you are getting sick and so on. And so he's sort of applying the whole quantified self kind of approach. He gives tools and ideas to the patients what to do. And so I started writing the book with him, and we are also joined by a mutual friend who is a nutritional specialist, whose name is Jaakko Halmetoja, who wrote a book on chaga. Chaga is a mushroom that grows here in Finland on birch trees and has a lot of antibacterial, anti-cancer, antiviral kind of features to it, and that's interesting. He wrote a book about that, and he's sort of applying anyway in a very extensive way sort of the ancient forgotten wisdom of herbalism, but based on modern scientific understanding. So he's sort of looking at the nutritional aspects. Olli is looking at the medical side, and I'm looking at the technological side. So we are writing a book together.
Great combination.
Biohacker's Handbook. And Biohacker's Handbook is a book that has 5 chapters. Sleep, exercise, nutrition, and work and your mind. The whole idea about the book is how do you upgrade these different systems with technological and biological tools. And for example, for us, food is technology. I mean, this stuff is technology. It's an input into your system. And it really does affect things, different metabolic processes, and gives you the nutrients to run this engine. Just for example.
And maybe the English translation to be published?
Yeah, so we have already 3 chapters ready. So sleep, the mind, and nutrition. And we are now working on exercise and work. And we're gonna release the physical book for Christmas in Finnish, but before that we're gonna start releasing the chapters of the book in English in a similar way we did in Finland. So we started offering already the content of the book beforehand as ebooks. You can get every chapter, you can download them if you want to get your hands on the material. And once we are ready with all of those chapters, then we release the physical printed book. And we've been also running a podcast in Finland. It's now #1 in health category, Biohackers podcast, and we've been doing webinars. The webinars have been the largest independently organized webinars in Finland. For example, the webinar on nutrition in January, we had over 2,200 people watching it live on Google Hangouts, by the way. And, so there's a large number of people who are sort of tired of the establishment way of doing things, or I mean, this is the times we live in. You can do research online, and it's super hard to find. I mean, what is the stuff that could work and what not? And we sort of have done the work for you.
All the hard work,
So, for example, the nutrition chapter is 170 pages. Every page reads like an infographic. So there's a lot of graphics that is visualizing the text. And it's based on 500 meta studies. So there's scientific studies done where they looked into a specific field or a specific subject, and they looked like they did the filtering for us in terms of what studies are well done and relevant, and we look at the meta studies, and then we combine that into a book. So there's a lot of new information in the book from the last couple of years that has come out in research that has not been that much in the limelight by media and so on. So we looked, for example, in the nutrition chapter, we looked at the way of preparing our food in different ways, and using marinades, and how all of those things affect carcinogens that are then forming into your food or not, depending on what kind of preparation methods you use and so on. So there's a lot of interesting stuff. And I think we're going to have the first English chapter out by the end of summer. We start with sleep, and we continue to nutrition actually, and then forward from there. So if you're interested in this, there's a possibility to sign up on our newsletter and get information when that's coming out at biohackingbook.com.
Yeah, I will go there. And Teemu, in respect of time, I have 2 more questions for you. Do you also notice the growing interest in biohacking, like with Tim Ferriss and Dave Asprey with the Bulletproof diet and Bulletproof coffee, and also biohacking and your own initiative? Is that do you notice that?
Yeah, I didn't get all of your question, but yes, I'm familiar with the work of Dave Asprey and Tim Ferriss, and they're great inspiration to me. If I look at Tim Ferriss' books, 4-Hour Workweek, 4-Hour Body, 4-Hour Chef, those are great books. Our book is a bit different. We go deeper into explaining some of the systems and the interventions, and
more in depth.
Yeah, less anecdotal also. I mean, Tim Ferriss' work is very much based on his experiences and his friends' experience, while our book is more about looking into what, generally speaking, it has some kind of like scientific evidence. I mean, of course, Tim runs experiments on himself based on the scientific evidence that he has collected and what he has collected from the extremes, so people who do crazy stuff. And so our book is slightly different in the way how we approach it, but definitely there is a lot of similarity, like the whole idea of looking for the 20% that would result in 80% of improvement, the Pareto's law. That's great inspiration to us. So to answer your question about the popularity of all of this and interest, what I'm seeing is when we start organizing these local meetups here, Quantified Self and Biohacking Finland meetups, we will able to attract not just people who are interested in data and technology, but also humanists, so psychologists and doctors and so on in there. I think it's because of the biohacking aspect that we introduced into Quantified Self. And also the way how we marketed all of this. So we also involve the startup community very strongly in it. So bringing up, what are the great companies doing something on this field. And some of our first meetups, or I could even call them conferences, because the first one had close to 200 participants, is that it really, those first meetups really showed some of these companies also that they are working in the same field. I mean, there might be some company working on a tracker, for example, a sports tracker for exercise. Then there's a company who is working on a sleep sensor like Bedit, and they're in the same room, and that's the first time they are in the same room. And they realize, okay, so we are sort of working on the same field, which is biohacking, Quantified Self. So that was an interesting introduction. So last year we organized 2 large conferences. One of them was called Upgraded Life Festival, which is going to be on the 19th of May. And that's upgradelifefestival.com. And there's a discount, by the way. Biohacking15 is a code that gives you 10% discount if you're interested to come over. That's more of a professional side of all of this, and there's a lot of healthcare representatives and also investors and government and so on present in that conference. And last year when we organized it, we had over 650 participants. We had over 50 companies there. We had over 50 speakers, also from the Netherlands. Martin den Braber, for example, was around.
Yeah, I know him.
Yeah. And the other conference we organized was Biohacker Summit, biohackersummit.com.
There's also one planned for coming September, right?
Yeah, it was in last time it was in December, so we moved it into September. So it's going to be in September. Now we are gonna move it for one day. It's going to be on 23rd and 24th of September in Helsinki, and that's going to be more hands-on. So we're gonna have experts who can really tell about their personal experience, as well as inspire how to do these things, as well as we're going to have some companies that are practically showing what's possible with technology today, and it's going to be an awesome conference. I'm personally responsible for making that happen.
And I'm curious, are you standing right now, or you're also against the sitting as a kind of disease, or?
Yeah, I'm standing now because that's the way how I use computers nowadays. The macro movement, so moving your body, moves things on the micro level. So the lymphatic system and so on requires movement for things to circulate. And if you are sitting down, your metabolism basically almost shuts down, and you increase all kinds of risk for all kinds of stuff. So a little bit of movement during the day is very good. And I also noticed that it fixed my posture finally. I mean, it's much more easier to keep a good posture when you're standing than when you're sitting. So my habit is that once I've had my lunch, I usually sit for a while after, but usually I try to be active and moving around. And also when you're moving around, it motivates you to, when you're thinking or something, to just walk around and easily come back to your computer. And I often do like handstands and you know, hanging on a pull-up bar and so on. So it's
also some kind of CrossFit exercises.
I try to incorporate exercise in small snippets during the day. So every time I'm walking under my pull-up bar, I'm making a couple pull-ups right there and so on. So it's very, very good for the nervous system. I mean, most of our brain is anyway involved in controlling things in the spatial dimension. So there is a consequence of using your coordination and movement, and that's a cognitive boost and improvement as well. So I'm using that also just to keep my brain working better. So I think it's very tragic that I mean, today when we are knowledge workers, the society is super involved in immaterial things and thinking and working with ideas and solving problems. And the way how we do that is in the most counterproductive way in terms of doing that kind of work, which is sitting and not moving much. So I think if you want to perform well in that as well, you have to somehow incorporate in your day some regular exercise, preferably high intensity exercise that really challenges your nervous system. So my favorite movement is actually to do push-ups while I'm on a handstand. So while I'm standing on my hands, I'm doing a couple of push-ups. That's very good. It's also good for the back. So when you are sitting and doing this all the time, so it's very good to have your hands like this and developing those muscles.
Do some back exercises.
Very good.
Wow, that's great, Teemu. If people want to know more about you or follow you on social media, Twitter, Facebook, can you tell me where they can find you online?
Yeah, so the book is at biohackingbook.com, and we are in the process of launching an English website as soon as possible. You can also find me on SlideShare. There is some presentations on this topic. So Teemu Arina, A-R-A-N-A. You might find some quantified biohacking related stuff over there. Biohackersummit.com. I encourage you to check it out. That's an event where you can also meet me personally. And quantifiedself.fi, that's the website for our Finnish community, and there's some English material and video materials from our previous events.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Teemu, for your time, and well, I hope you have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, the same. Thanks, Peter, for this interview. So have a perfect day.
Dankjewel, luisteraars en kijkers. Dit was het interview met Teemu Arina. En je kan dus veel meer van hem vinden. En check het artikel op www.projectleven.nl. Thanks, Teemu.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.